Dario Santini grabbed my wrist in the middle of the gala, loud enough for the room to hear him call me Matteo's little shadow. And when I yanked free and walked straight to the coat check, I didn't look back, not at the humiliation, not at the job, and especially not at Matteo Rizzo, who stood there and did absolutely nothing. I made it to the street before my hands started shaking. The November air bit through my dress, but I welcomed it. Cold was clean. Cole didn't care that I'd just torched 3 years of careful invisibility in front of Milan's most powerful men. Cole didn't ask why my boss, the man I'd kept alive through scheduling miracles and crisis management, had watched Dario humiliate me and hadn't said a single word. My phone buzzed. Vera, probably. She'd seen me leave. I pulled it out. Not Vera. Rizzo, M car is waiting. Front entrance. I stared at the message. Then I blocked the number and kept walking. 3 years. 3 years of being the perfect executive assistant. I knew Matteo's calendar better than he did. I knew which meetings were fronts and which were real. I knew the routes his drivers took, the codes to his private elevator, the exact tone of voice that meant someone was about to lose everything they owned. And he knew none of it mattered. I'd been useful, that was all. My apartment, company housing, because of course it was, sat 12 blocks away. I could walk it, I would walk it. Then I'd write the resignation letter I should have written 2 years ago, before I started lying to myself that being indispensable meant being valued. Signorina De Luca. I stopped, turned. Luca stood beside a black sedan, hands clasped in front of him, expression professionally blank. Matteo's head of security. The man who'd once told me I asked too many questions, right before I'd caught a scheduling conflict that would have put Matteo in a room with a federal auditor. I'm walking, I said. Mr. Rizzo insists. Mr. Rizzo can insist all he wants. I don't work for him anymore. Luca's jaw tightened. You work for him until you formally resign. The car, signorina. I should have gotten in. Should have been smart. Instead, I smiled. Tell him I quit. Then I turned and kept walking. I made it 4 blocks before I realized Luca was following me. Not close. He kept a professional distance, but he was there. Patient, inevitable, fine. Let him follow. My phone rang. I pulled it out, saw Matteo's name flashing despite the block, and sent it to voicemail. It rang again immediately. I answered. I'm not getting in the car. I know. His voice slid through the phone like whiskey over ice, smooth, dark, and completely deliberate. My stomach twisted. I hated that my body still responded to that voice, that I'd spent 3 years training myself not to notice the way it moved through a room and failed every single time. But Luca stays with you until you're inside your building. Non-negotiable. Everything with you is non-negotiable. Yes, I stopped walking. Behind me, Luca stopped too. You let him touch me, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. In front of everyone. You watched Dario put his hands on me, and you did nothing. Silence stretched between us. I could hear the faint sound of traffic on his end. His office, probably. Still working while I fell apart on a Milan street. Then, get in the car, Isolda. My breath caught. He never used my first name. 3 years, and he'd called me De Luca, Signorina, or nothing at all. Hearing it now felt like fingertips trailing down my spine. Unwanted, impossible to ignore. No, I said, and hung up. Luca was suddenly closer. Not threatening. He'd never been threatening with me, but present in a way that made the street feel smaller. He's trying to protect you, Luca said quietly. From what? Embarrassment? Because that ship sailed when Dario... From the questions. Luca glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. You just made a scene in front of the Rossetti family, the Benedetti syndicate, and half the city's legitimate business owners. You think they didn't notice Matteo Rizzo's assistant walked out on him in the middle of a negotiation gala? Ice spread through my chest. I didn't walk out on a negotiation. The Rossetti deal was supposed to close tonight. You managed the timeline. You built the schedule that put everyone in that room at exactly the right moment. Luca's voice stayed even, professional. Now they're wondering why the woman who runs Rizzo's calendar abandoned him in public. What does she know? What did she see? Is she talking to competitors? To authorities? That's insane. I would never. They don't know that. And they won't care about loyalty when they're deciding whether you're a liability worth eliminating. The word eliminating landed like a fist. You're being dramatic, I said. Am I? Luca tilted his head slightly. How many meetings have you sat in where information was the only currency that mattered? How many deals have you watched collapse because someone talked to the wrong person? Too many. The answer was too many. What do you want me to do? I asked. Let me walk you home. Let Mr. Rizzo secure the situation. Then decide if you really want to leave. I've already decided. Then decide how you want to leave. Quietly, with his protection, or loudly, with everyone watching to see what you do next. I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was manipulating me. But I'd been in enough meetings. I knew how information moved in Matteo's world, quietly, carefully, and always toward leverage. Fine, I said. You can walk me home, but that's it. No car, no more calls. And tomorrow I'm gone. Understood. We walked the rest of the way in tense silence. Luca kept that same careful distance, close enough to intervene but far enough to let me pretend I had control. The building's night security, Paolo, who always smiled and asked about my day, waved me through. I didn't look back as I headed for the elevator. Signorina, I stopped, turned. Luca stood in the doorway, backlit by streetlights. His expression was carefully neutral, but something in his eyes looked almost apologetic. He didn't do nothing, Luca said. I was there, Luca. You saw what he wanted you to see. Luca's voice dropped lower. Dario Santini will not be at work tomorrow, or the day after, or ever again. His corporate accounts were frozen at 11:15 tonight. His consulting contracts were voided by 11:30. His work visa is currently under federal review for fraudulent documentation, and his personal banking records have been flagged for audit by 3 separate regulatory agencies. My throat went dry. What? Mr. Rizzo made 6 phone calls during the 20 minutes you spent walking home. Dario's career ended before you reached your building. The elevator dinged behind me. Why didn't he just— I couldn't finish the sentence. Why? Didn't he defend me in public? Why did he let me walk out thinking he didn't care? Because making a scene at a negotiation gala would have made you look weak, Luca said quietly. Like you needed him to fight your battles. This way, Dario's destruction looks like business, routine, nothing to do with you at all. Except it has everything to do with me. Yes, but now no one can prove it, and you don't look like a victim. He turned and walked out before I could respond. I rode the elevator up in silence, walked into my apartment, and went straight to my laptop. The resignation letter took me 20 minutes to write. Formal, professional, effective immediately, with acknowledgement that early termination of my housing contract meant I had 72 hours to vacate per the accelerated terms in Section 9B. I attached 3 years of meticulously documented work, every crisis I'd solved, every disaster I'd prevented, every time I'd made Matteo Rizzo look competent instead of terrifying. Then I sent it to HR, Matteo's official work email, and Vera as a witness. Done. I closed the laptop and waited to feel relieved. Instead, I felt exposed. My phone buzzed. Email notification. I grabbed it, expecting HR's auto-reply. From Rizzo, Matteo. Subject: formal resignation. Transition protocol required. Your resignation is received and logged. Transition period effective immediately per Section 14C of your employment contract. Minimum 14 days required for roles with executive calendar access, security route knowledge, and master authorization codes. Housing contract remains active during transition for security continuity. Violation of transition terms triggers financial and legal penalties per Section 14D, including but not limited to forfeiture of final compensation and breach of contract damages. Monday, 7 a.m. My office. We negotiate terms, or I enforce them. Your choice. I stared at the screen. Then I pulled up my contract, scrolled to Section 14. Every word was exactly as he'd said. Of course it was. I'd signed this contract 3 years ago, eager and grateful for the opportunity. I'd never imagined I'd want to leave. Never imagined I'd need to. The transition period clause sat there in black and white, requiring 14 days' notice for any role with executive-level access to proprietary calendar systems, security protocols, transportation routes, facility codes, or strategic scheduling information. That was me. All of it. I threw my phone on the couch and walked to the window. Milan spread out below me, glittering and indifferent. Somewhere out there, Dario Santini was probably realizing his entire life had just collapsed. Somewhere out there, Matteo Rizzo was sitting in his office, making decisions that rearranged the world like chess pieces. And I was here, trapped for 2 more weeks in a job I'd just publicly quit. My phone rang. I didn't want to answer, didn't want to hear that voice again, didn't want to feel my pulse spike the way it always did when he called. I answered anyway. "I can make you stay 2 weeks," Matteo said, without preamble. His voice was quiet, controlled, final. "Or I can make you wish you'd stayed 2 weeks. Your choice." "Why?" The word came out sharper than I intended. "Why do you even care? You didn't care when Dario—" "I cared." His voice dropped lower, and I felt it in my chest. "I have always cared. You just never looked closely enough to see it." My heart kicked hard against my ribs. "Monday morning," he continued. "My office, 7 a.m. We'll discuss your transition plan. You'll document your processes, transfer your access codes, and train your replacement. And you'll do it properly because you don't do anything halfway. And if I don't show up?" Silence. Then I'll come to you. And I promise you won't like that conversation half as much." The line went dead. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to empty air. My hands were shaking again, not from cold this time, from the way he'd said always, like it was a confession, like it cost him something to admit. I pulled up my messages and texted Vera. "Need a lawyer, good one, discreet. Can you send me a name?" Her response came immediately. "What happened? Are you okay?" I stared at the question. What happened was I'd stopped being invisible. And now Matteo Rizzo was looking directly at me. And I had no idea what he saw. I typed, "I'll explain tomorrow. Just send me the name. Please, Vera. Calling you now." "No," I said out loud. Even though she couldn't hear me, I couldn't talk about this yet. Couldn't put words to the feeling crawling under my skin. My phone rang. Vera's name flashed. I sent it to voicemail and texted, "Can't talk tonight, tomorrow, I promise." Then I locked my phone, walked to my bedroom, and tried very hard not to think about the way Matteo had said my name. Like he'd been holding it in his mouth for 3 years. Like he'd finally decided to let me hear it. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and 3 years of calendar data, building a map of everything I knew. Meeting patterns, route rotations, security shift changes. The 17 different ways Matteo moved through Milan without being predictable. The 6 backup offices he used when the main one felt exposed. The coded language he used in emails that looked legitimate, but meant something else entirely. If I was going to survive 2 weeks of transition, I needed leverage. By 6 a.m., I had documentation that would take his replacement 6 months to learn. Every contingency plan, every crisis protocol, every contact who mattered and why. I also had a list of vulnerabilities my departure would create, calendar gaps where meetings could overlap, route patterns that would become predictable without my randomization, security codes that needed rotation, access points that required 2-person authorization, mine and his. I saved everything to an encrypted file and backed it, up 3 ways. Then I got dressed for war. The Matteo Rizzo I'd worked for appreciated competence, so I'd give him exactly that. Controlled, professional, and completely untouchable. Black suit, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. The version of myself that had survived 3 years by being useful and invisible. Except I wasn't invisible anymore. I arrived at his building at 6:50, early but not eager. The lobby security guard, Marco, who usually waved me through, stopped me at the desk. "Signorina De Luca." He didn't smile. "ID, please." I pulled out my access card. "I've worked here for 3 years, Marco. Protocol changed this morning, Mr. Rizzo's orders." He scanned my card, checked something on his screen, then nodded. "Authorized, top floor only. Elevator code has been updated." Of course it had. I walked to the private elevator and entered the new code from the text message that had arrived at 6:45. The doors opened immediately. The ride up felt longer than usual, or maybe that was just my pulse trying to beat its way out of my chest. The elevator opened directly into Mateo's floor, the executive suite that sat above the main offices like a crown. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Milan. Minimalist furniture, everything clean, controlled, and completely his. He stood at the windows with his back to me, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian to someone who was clearly about to have a very bad day. I stepped out of the elevator. The doors closed behind me with a soft click. Mateo's voice cut off mid-sentence. He said something quieter into the phone, then ended the call. He didn't turn around. "You're early," he said. "So are you." "I'm always here early." He slid his phone into his pocket, then finally turned to face me. "You've never noticed because you arrive at 8. He looked exactly the same as he had last night. Dark suit, perfect composure, those unsettling gray eyes that saw too much. But something felt different. The air between us was charged in a way it had never been before. Or maybe it had always been this way, and I'd just been too careful to notice. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I stayed standing. "I'd rather not." His mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. "You've decided to be difficult. I've decided to be clear. I'm here because your contract says I have to be, not because I want to be." "I know." He moved away from the windows, closing the distance between us with that particular economy of movement that made every step deliberate. "But you're still here. That's what matters." He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that I'd spent 3 years pretending not to notice. "The transition plan," I said, keeping my voice level. "I've prepared documentation. Everything your replacement will need to know." "There is no replacement." My stomach dropped. "What?" "I'm not replacing you. Isolde, I'm keeping you." "You can't keep me. I resigned. And I'm refusing to accept the resignation." He tilted his head slightly, watching me with the same expression he used when studying a contract for weaknesses. "The transition period gives me 2 weeks to change your mind. I intend to use them." "That's not what transition periods are for." "I don't care what they're for. I care what they give me. Time, proximity, and leverage." My pulse jumped, not from anger, from something far more dangerous. "This is insane," I said. "This is business. You have something I need. I have something you need. We negotiate. I don't need anything from you. You need safety." He said it quietly, factually. "You need housing while you relocate. You need protection from the questions that started the moment you walked out last night. You need time to secure your next position without being blacklisted. And you need your final compensation package, which I can make very generous or very complicated." I forced myself to breathe slowly. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm offering you terms. Whether they feel like a threat depends entirely on how cooperative you choose to be." "Cooperative," I laughed, and it came out sharp. "You want me to cooperate with being held hostage. I want you to cooperate with being protected. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing." Something flickered in his expression, frustration maybe, or something that looked almost like hurt. "Sit down, Isolde." "No, please." The word landed between us like a stone in still water. I'd never heard Matteo Rizzo say please. Not in 3 years. Not to anyone. I sat. He moved behind his desk but didn't sit. Instead, he pulled a folder from the locked drawer and placed it in front of me. "Open it," he said. I hesitated, then flipped it open. Photographs, surveillance photos, me leaving the gala, me walking home, me entering my building. Time stamps in the corners. 21:47, 22:03, 22:14. My blood went cold. "Who took these?" I asked. "I don't know yet, but they were sent to my personal email at 3 a.m., anonymously. The metadata shows they were uploaded to a shared server that 3 different organizations have access to: the Benedetti Syndicate, the Calabresi family, and a shell company that fronts for Eastern European interests." He pulled out another photo. This one showed me at a cafe 2 days ago, talking to Vera. Another showed me at the grocery store. A third showed me getting into a taxi. They've been watching you for at least a week, Matteo said. Possibly longer. These are just the photos they wanted me to see. Why would they want you to see them? To send a message. You're exposed, vulnerable. And if I don't control the situation, someone else will. I stared at the photos. My hands wanted to shake, but I locked them together in my lap. This is because I resigned, I said. This is because you know too much. The resignation just made it obvious. He sat down finally, folding his hands on the desk. You have access to my calendar, my routes, my codes. You know which meetings are real and which are theater. You know how I move, when I move, and why. That information is worth millions to the right buyer. I would never, I know, but they don't. And even if they believe you won't sell it, they'll still want to neutralize the risk, which means either bringing you under their control or eliminating you entirely. The word eliminating echoed exactly the way it had when Lucas said it. So what do you want from me? I asked. I want you to let me protect you while I find out who's running the surveillance and shut it down. I want you to stay in secured housing where I control security. I want you to follow the protocols I put in place. And I want you to stop fighting me like I'm the enemy. You locked me into a contract I can't break. I gave you a reason to stay somewhere safe while people are hunting for leverage against me. And you're the biggest piece they've found. I looked up at him. Really looked. His expression was controlled, but tension lived in his shoulders, in the tight line of his jaw. He looked like a man who hadn't slept either. Why do you care? I asked. I'm just your assistant. You were never just my assistant. His voice went quiet, dangerous. You've been running my life for 3 years, preventing disasters I never saw coming, fixing problems before they became catastrophes. You've saved me more times than you know. So no, Isolde. You're not just my assistant. You're the reason my operation hasn't collapsed. My throat tightened. Then let me leave, I said. Train someone else. Let me go. I can't. The words came out flat, final. Because the moment you walk out that door without my protection, you become a target. And I won't. He stopped, breathed. I won't let that happen. The weight in his voice made something crack open in my chest. 2 weeks, he said. Give me 2 weeks to secure the situation. Let me move you to a safer location. Find the surveillance team and neutralize the threat. Then, if you still want to leave, I'll let you go. Clean exit. Full compensation. References that will get you any position you want. And protection that doesn't end just because you're not working for me anymore. And if I say no, then you walk out of here, and I can't help you when they come. His eyes locked on mine. And they will come, Isolde. The only question is whether you'll be alone when they do. I wanted to call him a liar, wanted to believe this was manipulation. But I'd seen the photos. I'd been in enough meetings to know how these things worked. Information was currency, and I was holding a fortune. I have conditions, I said. Something that might have been relief crossed his face. Name them. I pulled out my phone and opened the notes I'd written at 4 a.m. 1. I want written documentation of the threat. Names, organizations, evidence. I don't take your word for things anymore. Agreed. 2. I want my own security contact. Someone who reports to me, not you. Someone I can call if I think you're crossing lines. His jaw tightened. That defeats the purpose of non-negotiable. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded once. I'll hire an independent contractor, but they'll be vetted by my people first, and they'll coordinate with Luca on logistics. You get your outside contact. I get to make sure they're not a plant. So not actually independent, I said. No, but better than nothing. He held my gaze. I'm not giving you a weapon to use against me, Isolde. I'm giving you the illusion of one. Take it or leave it. At least he was honest. 3, I continued. I want access to my own finances. No frozen accounts, no delayed payments, no financial leverage over me. Done. Your salary continues as normal, plus hazard compensation for the additional risk. I don't want hazard pay. I want freedom. You can have both. I looked down at my notes. The next one was harder. 4. My sibling stays out of this. Whatever protection you put on me, it doesn't extend to them unless I explicitly ask. I don't want them pulled into your world. Something shifted in Mateo's expression, softened maybe. Your sibling is already protected, he said quietly. Has been for 6 months. My head snapped up. What? The grad school funding you've been covering. I made sure the university has enhanced security protocols for international students. The medical debt from your parents' situation. I had my legal team negotiate it down to a manageable payment plan that won't impact their credit. They don't know, and they won't, but they're safe. I couldn't breathe. How did you know? I asked. About the debt? The school? You took 3 calls in the bathroom during the Benedetti negotiation last March. I heard you through the door, not the words, but the tone. Desperation. The kind that doesn't come from work. Stress. His voice was quiet, precise. I had my legal team research property liens, medical debt filings, university financial aid applications for anyone with your surname. It took them 4 hours to find the pattern. That's invasive. Yes, and I won't apologize for it. He leaned forward slightly. You were carrying too much weight. And you never asked for help. You think I didn't notice you getting thinner, sleeping less, holding yourself together with discipline and spite. You never said anything. Because you would have quit before accepting help. You would have seen it as charity, as weakness. His voice dropped lower. But it wasn't weakness, Isolde. It was watching you break yourself to keep everyone else whole. Tears burned behind my eyes. I blinked them back. That's not protection, I said. That's control. It's both. I won't apologize for that. I closed my eyes, tried to think past the emotions clawing up my throat. Last condition, I said. When this is over, when the 2 weeks are done and the threat is handled, you let me go. Completely. No strings, no leverage, no surprise contract clauses that pull me back in. I walk away free, or this doesn't work. He didn't answer immediately. When I opened my eyes, he was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. If that's what you want, he said finally. Yes. Promise me. I promise that when the 2 weeks are over, you'll be free to choose. No coercion, no manipulation, just a choice. It wasn't quite what I'd asked for, but it was close enough. Then we have a deal, I said. He stood, extended his hand across the desk. I stood too, looked at his hand like it might burn me. Then I shook it. His grip was warm, firm, and he held on just a fraction longer than necessary before letting go. Luca will take you to the new apartment this afternoon, Matteo said, slipping back into business mode. It's in a secure building, top floor, private elevator access. You'll have 2 security personnel rotating shifts outside your door. That's excessive. That's survival. You'll also have a new phone with encrypted communications and a direct line to me and Luca. Your personal phone stays active, but we'll monitor it for suspicious contact. You're going to spy on my phone. I'm going to make sure no one else is. He pulled a slim box from his drawer and handed it to me. Company phone, pre-programmed with everything you need. I took it. The box was heavier than expected. One more thing, he said. Tomorrow night there's an industry event. Port Authority Council meeting, quarterly review that was already scheduled. I need to be seen there, and I need you with me. Why? Because if you disappear right after resigning, it looks like you're running, or hiding, or worse, cooperating with investigators. We need to show a united front. You're transitioning out professionally, not fleeing in scandal. I'm not going to a council meeting with you. It's not optional. It's crisis management. He moved around the desk, closing the distance between us again. 2 hours, we make an appearance, we show that everything is professional and controlled, and then Luca takes you to the new apartment. That's it. And if I say no, then people will wonder why. And wondering turns into questions. Questions turn into investigations. Investigations turn into leverage for whoever's running surveillance on you. I hated that he was right. Fine, I said. 2 hours, then I'm done. 2 hours, he agreed. He was standing too close again. Close enough that I could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the barely there scar above his left eyebrow that I'd always wondered about but never asked. Close enough that breathing felt difficult. You should go, he said quietly. Get some rest before tomorrow. You look exhausted. Whose fault is that? His mouth curved. Mine, I'm aware. I turned toward the elevator, then stopped. Matteo. He looked up. I'd never used his first name before, not in 3 years. His expression shifted, sharpened. The photos, I said. How did you get them? They were sent to my personal email at 3 a.m., anonymously. So someone wanted you to know they're watching me. Yes. Why? Because they want me to know they can get to me through you. And they're right. He said it simply, without hesitation. They're absolutely right. The elevator doors opened behind me. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the ground floor. The last thing I saw before the doors closed was Matteo standing in the middle of his office, watching me leave with an expression that looked almost like fear. Monday afternoon, Luca arrived at my old apartment at 2 p.m. with 2 moving specialists and a security assessment team. We're packing everything essential, he said. Personal items, documents, clothing. Everything else stays for now. We can retrieve it later if needed. This feels like witness protection. It's close enough. He handed me a tablet. Review this security protocol while we pack. You'll need to memorize the emergency procedures. I spent the next 3 hours watching strangers pack my life into boxes while memorizing evacuation routes, safe room locations, and emergency contact procedures. By 5 p.m., I was standing in a new apartment that felt more like a luxury hotel suite than a home. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, a kitchen I'd never use, a bedroom with a lock I'd definitely test, and 2 security guards posted outside my door. The building has biometric access, Luca explained. Only you, me, and Mr. Rizzo can access this floor. The emergency stairwell requires a code that changes every 6 hours. You'll receive updates on your secure phone. This is insane. This is necessary. He handed me a key card. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be long. He left. I stood in the middle of my new prison and tried to decide if I felt safer or more trapped. Both, probably. The package arrived at 4 p.m. on Tuesday. I stared at the elegant box on my doorstep. How it got past security, I didn't want to know, then brought it inside. Black dress. Simple, elegant. Pulled from a private collection with only minor alterations. Perfectly tailored as if someone had been paying attention to every detail for years. Shoes, jewelry, and a handwritten note, necessary, not a gift. I held the dress up to the light. He'd chosen something that would make me look untouchable. I hated that he was right about that too. Luca arrived at 6:20, impeccably professional in a dark suit. You look well, Signorina, he said as I locked my apartment door. I look like I'm going to a funeral. Mr. Rizzo specifically requested understated elegance. I believe his exact words were, she needs to look untouchable. Something about that made my stomach flip. Where's the event? I asked as we walked to the elevator. Hotel Galante, the rooftop garden. Quarterly Port Authority review. Very public, very legitimate. City council members, shipping executives, logistics partners. And very convenient timing. Mr. Rizzo didn't arrange the meeting, but he's making sure you're seen there. The car ride took 20 minutes. I watched Milan slide past the windows and spotted the same dark sedan 3 turns behind us. We're being followed, I said quietly. Luca's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. I know. They've been on us since we left your building. And you're not concerned. I'm always concerned. But they're keeping distance, observing, not engaging. That's actually preferable. We know where they are. The Hotel Galante rose above the city like a glass and steel monument to excess. Luca pulled up to the private entrance and came around to open my door. He's already inside, Luca said. 3rd floor terrace. I'll escort you up. I know where the terrace is. I've scheduled 16 events here. I know you have, but tonight I escort you anyway. We rode the elevator in silence. When the doors opened, the sound of conversation and soft music spilled out. The terrace was beautiful, strung lights, manicured gardens, servers moving through clusters of Milan's business elite with champagne and small plates. I spotted Matteo immediately. He stood near the far railing, speaking with 2 men I recognized as Port Authority executives. He looked exactly like he always did. Controlled, authoritative, completely in command of the space around him. Then he saw me. The conversation didn't stop. His expression didn't change. but something in his eyes shifted, sharpened. He said something to the executives, shook their hands, and crossed the terrace toward me. Every step was deliberate, controlled, and everyone noticed. Conversations quieted. Eyes tracked his movement. By the time he reached me, half the terrace was watching. "Isolde," he said quietly. Then he did something I never expected. He offered me his arm. I stared at it. "We're supposed to look professional," I said under my breath. "We are professional. We're also supposed to look united." His voice dropped lower. "Take my arm. Let them see you're choosing to be here." My heart hammered against my ribs. I took his arm. The fabric of his suit was soft under my fingers. I could feel the warmth of him through it, the solid strength of muscle underneath. He guided me into the crowd with easy confidence, stopping to greet people, introducing me as my executive assistant, Isolde de Luca, with a tone that somehow made it sound like the most important position in the room. We moved through conversations about shipping routes and logistics contracts and city development projects. I smiled, nodded, said the right things at the right moments, and the entire time, Matteo's hand covered mine where it rested on his arm. Not possessive, not controlling, just there. "You're good at this," he murmured during a lull between conversations. "I've been managing your public image for 3 years. Of course I'm good at it." "That's not what I meant." He steered me toward a quieter corner of the terrace, away from the main crowd. "I meant you're good at making it look easy, making them believe you want to be here." "Maybe I do." His eyes found mine. "Do you?" I didn't answer, couldn't answer, because standing here with his hand over mine, with the city glittering below us and the weight of his attention focused entirely on me, I didn't know what I wanted anymore. "There's someone I need you to meet," Matteo said finally. "Antonio Calabrese. He's been watching us since we arrived." My blood chilled. "Calabrese, as in the family who has access to the server with your surveillance photos." "Yes." Matteo's voice stayed calm, even. "He's going to approach us. When he does, I need you to do exactly what you've been doing. Be professional, be polite, and do not react to anything he says, no matter how it sounds." "What's he going to say?" "I don't know. That's the problem." A man separated from the crowd near the bar, mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Antonio Calabrese. He walked toward us with predatory patience. "Matteo," he said warmly. "So good to see you." "Antonio." Matteo's tone was cordial, perfectly controlled. "Allow me to introduce my executive assistant, Isolde de Luca." Calabrese's smile widened. "Ah, yes. I've heard quite a bit about Signorina de Luca recently." I slid down my spine. "All good things, I hope," I said smoothly. "Very interesting things." His eyes moved over me in a way that made my skin crawl. "I understand you're leaving Rizzo Maritime, pursuing other opportunities." "Transitioning," I corrected. "There's a difference, of course. Though I must say, it seems unusual for someone with your unique knowledge of operations to simply walk away. Unless perhaps you're not walking away at all." Matteo's hand tightened slightly on mine. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Mr. Calabrese," I said carefully. "No implication, simply curiosity. After all, a woman in your position knows things, valuable things. One might wonder where that value goes after the transition is complete." "It goes with me into retirement from this particular industry," I said. "I'm looking forward to a quieter life." "Quiet?" "Yes." Calabrese's smile turned sharp. "Though quiet lives can be so terribly boring, and sometimes dangerous if one isn't careful about who they trust." "Is that a threat?" Matteo's voice went cold. "A friendly observation, nothing more." Calabrese raised his champagne glass in mock salute. "Enjoy your evening." He walked away. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until it came out in a rush. "He knows," I said quietly. "He suspects. There's a difference." Matteo's jaw was tight. "But he wanted us to know he's watching. Wanted to see how you'd react." "How did I do?" "Perfectly." His hand was still over mine. "You didn't flinch, didn't show fear. You were exactly what you've always been. Too smart to be intimidated." Something in his voice made me look up. He was watching me with an intensity that made breathing difficult. "We should leave," he said quietly. "We've been seen. That's enough." Agreed. He guided me back through the crowd, toward the elevators. We said polite goodbyes, made appropriate excuses. And the entire time, I felt Calabresi's eyes following us. The elevator doors closed on the rooftop terrace. The moment we were alone, Matteo stepped back, put distance between us. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For putting you in a room with him. For making you smile while he threatened you. For all of it. You didn't make me do anything. I chose to be there. Because I made you believe you had to be." The elevator descended in silence. Then I said, "He's the one running surveillance, isn't he? Either him or someone he's working with." "Yes." "So what now?" "Now Luca takes you to the secure apartment. I meet with my contacts and figure out exactly what Calabresi wants and how to give him a reason to back off." The elevator reached the ground floor. Luca was already waiting. Matteo walked me to the car, opened the door himself. 2 weeks, he said quietly. "I'll fix this in 2 weeks." "And if you can't?" His expression went hard. "I will." I got into the car. He closed the door, and as Luca pulled away from the hotel, I looked back and saw Matteo standing on the sidewalk, watching the car disappear into Milan's night like he was memorizing the moment, like he thought it might be the last time he saw me. The surveillance became impossible to ignore by Wednesday afternoon. Same dark sedan. Different drivers, always 3 cars back, never closer. I spotted them twice on my way to the office, once when Luca picked me up at 7 a.m., again when we stopped for coffee. They didn't hide. They wanted me to know they were watching. "They're getting bolder," I said as Luca pulled into the underground garage. "Or more desperate." He checked the mirrors one last time before killing the engine. "Mr. Rizzo wants you in his office. He has updates." I found Matteo standing at his windows, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in clipped Italian that sounded like barely controlled rage. He ended the call when he saw me. Didn't bother with pleasantries. "Calabresi made contact this morning," he said. "Through intermediaries. He wants a meeting." "About what?" "You." Matteo's jaw was tight. "Specifically, he wants to know what arrangements we've made for your transition knowledge. He's offering to facilitate your next position in exchange for consultation on my operations." My stomach turned. "He wants me to spy for him. He wants leverage. You're the fastest route to get it." Matteo set his phone down with controlled precision. I told him to go to hell, diplomatically. And now? Now he escalates. "The surveillance isn't random, Isolde. It's a countdown. He's documenting your movements, building a pattern, waiting for the right moment to make a move." "What kind of move?" "The kind that forces my hand. An abduction attempt. A public incident that destroys your credibility. Something that proves I can't protect what's mine." He stopped, corrected himself. "What I'm responsible for." The slip didn't go unnoticed. Neither did the way he'd caught it. "I have something," I said, pulling out my tablet. "From the calendar data. I think I found how they knew I'd be at the gala Sunday night." Matteo moved closer. "Show me." I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd built overnight. 3 weeks ago, there was a scheduling request for the gala attendance. It came through the normal channels, approved by your office. But look at the timestamp. He leaned in, studying the screen. Close enough that I could smell that cologne again. Close enough that I had to focus very hard on the data instead of his proximity. 2 a.m., he said quietly. "No, one in my office works at 2 a.m. Exactly. And the approval came from an email address that looks legitimate but has one character different. A capital I instead of a lowercase l in Rizzo. Rizzo instead of Rizzo. Nearly invisible in most fonts unless you're looking for it. Someone inside had access to create false approvals. Or someone outside had access to our email templates and security protocols. I swiped to the next screen. I cross-referenced every scheduling request from the past 6 months. There are 11 more with similar timestamp anomalies, all outside business hours. All approved by near-identical spoofed addresses. Matteo's expression went cold. "What events?" "The Benedetti negotiation in March. The Port Authority dinner in April. You're meeting with the City Finance Committee in May. Every high-profile appearance where my attendance was expected. They've been tracking you for 6 months. They've been tracking us both, but they only started photographing me recently. I pulled up the final screen. I think something changed 3 weeks ago, right around the time Dario started testing boundaries. Matteo went very still. You think Dario was working with Calabresi? I think Dario was useful to someone, whether he knew it or not. I met his eyes. The public humiliation at the gala wasn't random. It was designed to provoke a reaction. From you, from me. Dario was too stupid to orchestrate something that calculated, but Calabresi isn't. He wanted to see if you'd break, if I'd defend you publicly. Matteo's voice was quiet, dangerous. He was testing our dynamic. And when you didn't react, I resigned, which made me vulnerable, which is exactly what he wanted. The silence that followed felt heavy. You're right, Matteo said finally, which means Dario wasn't just a rival executive being an ass. He was a test run. And I failed it by walking out. No. Matteo's hand found my shoulder. The touch was brief, but deliberate. You passed it by refusing to be a victim. But Calabresi didn't expect that. He expected you to either cling to me for protection or disappear quietly. You did neither. So now I'm interesting instead of predictable. Now you're dangerous. To him. His hand dropped. Can you trace where the spoofed emails originated? Not with what I have access to, but your IT security team could, if they knew what to look for. I'll have them start immediately. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. This is good work, Isolde. Better than good. It's what you hired me for, seeing patterns no one else sees. I hired you because you were competent and available. I kept you because you're brilliant, and I'm not stupid enough to let that go. The compliment landed harder than it should have. What happens now? I asked. Now I use this to flush out whoever's feeding Calabresi information from inside my organization. And I make sure they understand what happens when they compromise my operations. Without killing them, his mouth curved slightly. Without killing them, I have other methods. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. I pulled it out, read the message, then read it again. What? Matteo asked. Seeing my expression, I handed him the phone. Unknown. Your brother called campus security at 11:47 this morning. Someone tried to follow him to class. Thought you should know. V. The room tilted. Vera, I said. She has a contact at the university. She must have asked them to keep an eye out. Matteo was already dialing. Luca. I need a team at Milano Università immediately. Isolde's sibling. Yes, now. He ended the call and looked at me. What's your brother's schedule today? Wednesday he has economics at 1, then research lab at 3. He usually goes to the library between... I stopped. How are you going to explain security showing up? I'm not. Luca's people don't wear uniforms. They'll look like students. Your brother won't know they're there unless someone tries something. And if someone already tried something, then we'll know in the next 10 minutes. His voice stayed calm, controlled, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. Breathe, Isolde. Luca's people are the best. If there's a threat, they'll contain it. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the image of my brother, 22, focused on his degree, completely unaware of the danger I'd pulled into his life. This is my fault, I said. This is Calabresi's fault. Don't confuse the two. I resigned. I made myself a target. And now I fix it. Matteo's phone rang. He answered immediately. Talk to me. I watched his expression as he listened. Couldn't read anything in it. Good. Stay on him until his last class ends. Then make sure he gets back to his apartment safely. I want someone on his building tonight. Pause. No, don't approach him. Just watch. He ended the call. He's fine, Matteo said. In class right now. Luca's people swept the building. No one's inside, but there was someone watching from the cafe across the street. They left when our team arrived. Did they get a description? Male, mid-30s, dark jacket. Stayed for 40 minutes, never ordered anything, left the moment he saw our people. Matteo's expression was grim. Professional surveillance, not a student, not campus security, someone who knew what he was doing. Calabresi is going after my family. Calabresi is trying to make you panic. He wants you to feel unsafe, unprotected. He wants you to believe I can't keep the people you love secure. Matteo moved closer. But he's wrong. Your brother has protection now. 24-hour coverage. He won't know about it, but it's there. For how long? As long as necessary. Weeks, months, however long it takes. I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him it was too much. But my brother was safe. That was all that mattered. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't thank me. This is basic operational security. Calabresi made a mistake going after your family. It means he's running out of subtle options. Matteo checked his watch. I need you to do something for me. What? Tonight there's a private dinner, very small, 6 people, import-export partners from Eastern Europe, the same shell company that has access to the surveillance server. My blood went cold. You want me at a dinner with the people who've been watching me? I want them to see you're not afraid. I want them to see you're protected. And I want to watch how they react when they realize you're not going anywhere. His eyes locked on mine. Can you do that? Every instinct screamed no. But I thought about my brother, about Vera, about everyone who could become a target if I showed weakness. Yes, I said, I can do that. It'll be worse than the Port Authority event. These men don't bother with politeness. They'll test you, push boundaries, try to make you uncomfortable. I've spent 3 years managing your most dangerous meetings. I think I can handle dinner. Something that might have been pride crossed his face. I know you can. That's why I'm asking. Wednesday evening, 7:30 p.m., private dining room, Ristorante Savini. The restaurant was old Milan elegance. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, servers who moved like ghosts through candlelit spaces that smelled of wine and old money. The private dining room sat on the 2nd floor, away from the main restaurant. Soundproofed, discreet. The kind of place where conversations happened that couldn't be overheard. Perfect for business that existed in the margins. Matteo arrived first, with me on his arm again. The same choreography as the Port Authority event, but with higher stakes and sharper edges. 3 men already sat at the table. Eastern European faces, expensive suits that didn't quite fit right, watches that screamed new wealth. The kind of men who'd made their money in ways that didn't appear on tax returns. They stood when we entered. Gentlemen, Matteo said smoothly, allow me to introduce my executive assistant, Isolde De Luca. She'll be joining us this evening. The tallest one, gray hair, sharp eyes, a smile that calculated risk like a banker, extended his hand. Signorina De Luca, we've heard so much about you. Nothing too damaging, I hope, I said lightly, shaking his hand with exactly the right amount of pressure. Only that you're leaving Signor Rizzo's employment. A significant loss for him, I imagine. A temporary transition, Matteo corrected, pulling out my chair. Isolde is ensuring a smooth handover of her responsibilities. Very professional. I sat. Matteo took the seat beside me, close enough that his knee brushed mine under the table. The evening proceeded with excruciating slowness. Courses arrived in that carefully timed rhythm that expensive restaurants perfected. Wine was poured, something red and Italian that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Conversation moved through shipping routes and customs regulations and import tariffs. The kind of talk that sounded legitimate, but carried undertones I'd learned to hear. And the entire time, I felt the weight of 3 pairs of eyes assessing me, measuring, calculating my worth. Tell me, Signorina, the gray-haired man said, during the 3rd course, some kind of fish and sauce that I barely tasted. What will you do after your transition is complete? Surely someone with your knowledge has many opportunities. I'm considering a few options. Nothing finalized yet. Perhaps we could make you an offer. Our organization is always looking for talented individuals with intimate knowledge of logistics operations. Matteo's hand found my knee under the table. A warning, or support, maybe both. That's very generous, I said carefully. But I'm planning to step away from this industry entirely. I'm looking forward to something quieter. Quiet can be boring and lonely. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes, especially for someone accustomed to being so close to power. I'll manage. Will you? He leaned forward slightly. The candlelight caught in his eyes, made them look predatory. Because from where we sit, it seems you're in a very vulnerable position. Leaving employment, leaving housing, leaving protection. That's a lot of instability. Dangerous, even. Is that a threat? Mateo's voice went cold. An observation. The world can be unpredictable, especially for young women on their own. I set down my wineglass with deliberate calm. Let the silence stretch for just a moment. Long enough to show I wasn't rattled, short enough that it didn't look like fear. I appreciate your concern, I said. But I'm not on my own, and I'm not as vulnerable as you might think. No? The man's eyes flicked to Mateo, then back to me. Something almost like amusement crossed his face. We'll see. The rest of dinner passed in tense civility. Dessert arrived, something with, chocolate and gold leaf that felt obscene. Coffee followed. The conversation stayed surface level, but the threat underneath never quite disappeared. By the time we said our goodbyes, I wanted nothing more than to leave. But I smiled, made small talk, played the role of the competent professional transitioning gracefully out of a difficult position. And I didn't flinch, not once. When the evening finally ended, Mateo walked me to the car with his hand at the small of my back. Warm, steady, possessive in a way that should have bothered me but didn't. You were perfect, he said quietly as we crossed the restaurant. Better than perfect. They threatened me, at dinner, in front of you. I know. And now I know exactly how far they're willing to push. He opened the car door. Luca will take you back to the apartment. I have calls to make. What kind of calls? The kind that remind people why threatening what's mine is a catastrophically bad idea. There it was again. What's mine? I didn't correct him this time. Luca drove in silence. I watched Milan blur past the windows and tried not to think about the gray-haired man's smile, about the way he'd looked at me like I was a commodity, about how close I'd come to showing fear. We were 3 blocks from my building when Luca's phone rang. He answered, listened. Then his expression changed, went hard and focused in a way that made my stomach drop. When? Pause. How many? Pause. Get her inside. Now. He ended the call and immediately changed lanes, taking a sharp turn that threw me against the door. What's happening? I asked. Someone tried to breach your building 15 minutes ago. 2 men. They were stopped at the lobby, but they had access codes that shouldn't exist. New codes that were only distributed yesterday. My heart stopped. How did they get the codes? That's what we're going to find out. But right now, we're not going to your apartment. He made another turn, heading away from my building, toward the outskirts of the city. Mr. Rizzo's orders. You're staying at his private residence until we secure the situation. His residence? No, absolutely not. This isn't negotiable, Signorina. Your apartment is compromised. Your brother's building is under enhanced surveillance. The only truly secure location right now is Mr. Rizzo's personal home. It's not held under any corporate structure. It's in a trust that doesn't trace back to him. Only 3 people in my organization know about this house. Let me guess. You, Mateo, and now you. We drove for another 20 minutes, leaving the city center behind. The buildings grew sparser, more exclusive. Old money neighborhood. The kind where privacy was purchased with walls and gates and security systems that cost more than most cars. Luca pulled up to an iron gate, entered a code, and drove through. The house sat back from the road, hidden by trees and carefully manicured darkness. Modern architecture mixed with old, Italian stone, understated but clearly expensive in the way that only true wealth could achieve, by not trying. Mateo stood in the doorway, phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call when he saw us. Inside, he said, both of you. The interior was nothing like I expected. No ostentation, no obvious displays of wealth. Just clean lines, comfortable furniture that looked actually used, and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with actual books. Not decorator spines, but worn volumes with cracked spines and dog-eared pages. The air smelled different from his office. No cologne, no coffee, no tension. Just old paper and wood polish and something that might have been lavender from the garden outside. It felt lived in, real. like he actually existed here as something other than Matteo Rizzo, the man who destroyed people with phone calls. What happened? I asked. Someone sold your security protocols, Matteo said flatly. The breach attempt used codes that were changed yesterday. Only 5 people had access to the new codes. 4 of them have been with me for years. The 5th was hired last week as part of your enhanced security detail. The independent contractor, I said, who was vetted by my people and cleared. His expression was dark, which means either the vetting process was compromised or someone inside my organization is working with Calabresi. Or both. Or both. He poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter on the side table. Didn't offer me one. The contractor is currently being questioned by lawyers who specialize in breach of contract litigation. We're offering him a choice: volunteer who hired him and face only civil penalties, or force us to involve law enforcement and face criminal charges for corporate espionage. He'll choose to cooperate. They always do when the alternative is prison. And if it's Calabresi, then I have proof, and proof gives me options that don't involve speculation. He downed the drink in one swallow. You're staying here tonight. Guest room is upstairs, second door on the left. Luca will bring your things from the apartment once it's cleared. I can't stay here. You can, you will. This isn't a request. Matteo? They had your codes, Isolda. They knew your security rotation. They knew exactly when to make the attempt. His voice was controlled, but I could hear the fury underneath. Barely leashed, dangerous. If you'd been home, they would have taken you, and I would have. He stopped, breathed. I would have failed, he finished quietly, and I don't fail, not at this. The weight of that statement settled between us. How long? I asked. 24 hours, maybe 48. However long it takes to find the leak and close it. He set down the glass. There's food in the kitchen. Luca will stay downstairs. I'll be in my office making calls. If you need anything, I won't. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I found the guest room, simple, clean. A bed that looked like it had never been used. Sheets that still had the faint smell of lavender and starch. I sat on the edge of it and tried to process the fact that I was in Matteo Rizzo's home. The place he came when he wanted to be away from his empire. The place no one else knew about. And he'd brought me here, let me see it. Trusted me with the location of the one space where he was just himself. I pulled out my phone to text Vera, then stopped. If my security protocols were compromised, my phone might be too. I set it down, lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling, and tried very hard not to think about the fact that Matteo was somewhere in this house, making calls that would destroy someone's life by morning. Tried not to think about how safe I felt here, how dangerous that feeling was. 2:47 a.m. and I couldn't sleep. I'd tried, failed. Spent 2 hours staring at shadows on the ceiling and listening to the unfamiliar sounds of someone else's house. The creak of old wood, the whisper of wind through trees, the distant hum of what might have been a security system, or just the bones of the building settling. Finally, I gave up. The hallway was dark. I made my way downstairs carefully, following the faint glow of light from what I assumed was the kitchen. I found Matteo instead. He sat at the dining table, laptop open, phone beside him, papers spread across the surface. Still in his shirt and slacks from dinner, tie discarded somewhere, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked exhausted and human. He looked up when I entered. Can't sleep? He asked. Can't stop thinking. Same. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. I'll make coffee. You don't have to. I'm making it anyway. Sit. I sat. He moved through the kitchen with surprising ease, clearly comfortable in this space in a way he never was in his office. A few minutes later, he set a cup in front of me. Black, right? He said. You never add anything, I've noticed. You notice a lot of things. It's my job. He sat across from me with his own cup. And you make it easy. You're consistent, predictable in the ways that matter. Is that a compliment or an assessment? Both. He took a sip. The contractor talked. Took him 3 hours of listening to contract law and the difference between civil and criminal liability, but he broke. He was approached 3 weeks ago by an intermediary, offered 50,000 euros to provide updated security protocols for your apartment. He didn't know who hired him. All contact was through encrypted messages and cryptocurrency transfers. But you know who it was. Calabresi. Has to be. The timing aligns with everything else. Matteo's expression was grim. I've frozen his primary business accounts, flagged his import licenses for regulatory review with customs authorities, contacted every partner he has in the European logistics network, and suggested, politely, that they might want to distance themselves before the legal complications spread. By tomorrow afternoon, he'll be fighting fires on 6 different fronts. That's not killing him. No, but it's close. Financial ruin, social exile, legal complications that will take years to resolve. He met my eyes. He'll know it was me, and he'll know why. Because he threatened me. Because he tried to take what's mine. There it was again. This time, I had to say something. I'm not yours, Matteo. I know. His voice was quiet, honest. But I wish you were. The confession hit like a physical blow. You can't say things like that, I said. Why not? It's true. I've spent 3 years pretending I didn't notice you, pretending you were just my assistant, pretending I didn't count down the hours until you'd walk into my office with solutions to problems I hadn't even identified yet. He leaned forward. But I did notice. Every day. And now you're leaving, and I'm supposed to let you go like it doesn't matter, like you don't matter. This is unprofessional, I know, but we're past professional. We were past it the moment you resigned, the moment I refused to accept it, the moment I brought you here. His eyes locked on mine. I want you to stay. Not because you're useful, not because you're brilliant at your job, because I've spent 3 years falling for you, and I'm not interested in climbing back out. I couldn't breathe. Say something, he said quietly. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Say you'll consider that maybe leaving isn't what you actually want. Say something other than no. I stood. Put us on more equal ground. I came here because I needed the job. I stayed because I was good at it. And now I'm trapped because leaving puts everyone I love in danger. My voice shook. That's not a foundation for anything real. You're right, it's not. He didn't step back, didn't give me space. But that's not why I want you to stay. I want you to stay because when you walk into a room, I forget what I was doing. Because you see problems I don't and solve them before they explode. Because you called me on my control issues to my face and didn't blink when I tried to intimidate you. Matteo, because I'm better when you're here, and I don't want to go back to who I was before you. His hand came up, brushed my cheek. I should have stepped back, should have maintained boundaries. Instead, I leaned into the touch. This is a mistake, I whispered. Probably. His thumb traced my jawline. But I've made worse ones. Then he kissed me, soft, careful, like he was asking a question instead of taking an answer. I kissed him back. And the moment I did, something shifted. The kiss deepened. His other hand found my waist, pulled me closer, my fingers curled into his shirt. It was urgent and inevitable and terrifying. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That was, I started. A mistake. I know, you said. His forehead rested against mine. Do you want me to apologize? No. Good, because I'm not sorry. I should have pulled away, should have gone back upstairs, should have put distance between us before this became something I couldn't walk away from. Instead, I kissed him again. This time, he wasn't careful. His hands tightened on my waist, and I made a sound that should have embarrassed me but didn't. Not here. Not with him looking at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. He backed me against the table edge. The wood pressed into my spine, solid and real. His mouth moved to my throat, and my head fell back, giving him access I shouldn't give but couldn't deny. Isolde. My name was a rough whisper against my skin. Tell me to stop. Don't stop. His hand slid up my sides, found the hem of my shirt, hesitated. The table edge bit into my lower back. His breath was hot against my collarbone. Everything felt sharp and immediate and right in a way that defied logic. Isolde, he said again. Waited. I covered his hands with mine, guided them higher. "Don't stop," I said again. He lifted me onto the table, papers scattered. The laptop slid sideways. Neither of us cared. I wrapped my legs around him, pulled him closer. His hands found my waist, my ribs, the curve of my back. Every touch deliberate, every movement asking permission, even as it took. My fingers found the buttons of his shirt, started working them open. He caught my wrists, gently. "Are you sure?" I looked at him, really looked. His hair was disheveled from my fingers. His eyes were dark and wanting and vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. He was asking, actually asking. "Yes," I said. He released my wrists. Let me continue. The shirt came off. I ran my hands over his chest, feeling the warmth of his skin, the solid muscle underneath, the way his breath caught when my fingers traced lower. His hands found the buttons of my blouse, moved slower than I wanted, asking with every movement. "Yes," I said, before he could ask again. The fabric slid away. His hands were everywhere, reverent and hungry and careful all at once. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew this changed everything. Knew there was no going back from this moment. But I didn't want to go back. I wanted to stay right here, in this impossible space between crisis and safety, with his hands on my skin and his breath in my lungs, and the certainty that for once, just once, I was choosing something purely because I wanted it. Not because I needed it. Not because I was trapped. Because I wanted him. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then memory returned. Mateo's house, the confession, the table, his hands on my skin. I sat up. I was in the guest room bed, still dressed in yesterday's clothes. No memory of how I'd gotten here. The clock read 9:47 a.m. I found my phone on the nightstand. 3 missed calls from Luca. 2 text messages. Luca, contractor gave us everything. Full deposition signed. Mr. Rizzo wants you downstairs when you're ready. Luca, no rush. Take your time. I showered in the guest bathroom, put on the same clothes because I had nothing else, and made my way downstairs. Mateo stood in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, looking like he'd slept even less than I had. He saw me and ended the call immediately. "Coffee?" he asked. "Please." He poured. Handed me the cup. Our fingers brushed. Neither of us mentioned last night. "Calabresi made his move," Mateo said. 2 hours ago, he tried to grab your brother outside his apartment building. My blood went cold. Is he? He's fine. Luca's team intercepted. 3 men in custody, currently being questioned by local police for attempted abduction. Your brother doesn't know it happened. He was still inside when they made the attempt. I set down the cup before I dropped it. This has to end. It will. Today. Mateo pulled out his tablet, brought up a file. The contractor's deposition gives us everything. Email trails, payment records, communication logs. All of it traces back to Calabresi's shell companies. We have proof. So we go to the police. No, we go to his partners. Mateo's expression was cold, calculated. Calabresi's operation depends on cooperation from a dozen different organizations. Import licenses, shipping contracts, port access, customs cooperation. I've been contacting them since first light. Every single one. 8 calls so far, 6 more to go. You're isolating him. I'm destroying him. By noon, he'll have no partners, no licenses, no legitimate business front. By tonight, he'll have federal investigators examining every transaction he's made in the past 5 years. He looked at me. But that's not enough. What do you mean? He went after your family. That's not business. That's personal. His voice went quiet, dangerous. And I need to make sure he never tries it again. How? By making him an offer he'll understand. Mateo closed the tablet. I need you to come with me. One last performance. One last time showing him you're protected. Where? His office, in about an hour. We need to catch him before his first meeting cancellation hits. Mateo checked his watch. He doesn't know we're coming. He doesn't know we have the evidence. And he doesn't know you're about to outthink him one final time. My heart kicked. What am I doing? Exactly what you've always done. Seeing the pattern no one else sees. He handed me the tablet. Look at his calendar. The one his assistant keeps. I had it pulled an hour ago. I scrolled through the appointments, standard business meetings, import reviews, shipping consultations. Then I saw it. He has 3 meetings scheduled for this afternoon, I said slowly, with the same partners you just contacted. Partners who are about to cancel, but he doesn't know that yet. I kept scrolling. Something else caught my eye. There's one more meeting, I said. 4 p.m., not on his official calendar, hidden in his personal schedule, listed as L. Marchesi, confidential consultation. Matteo leaned closer. Marchesi is your competitor for the Port Authority contract, the one you're bidding against next week. I looked up. Calabresi is meeting with your competitor 4 hours from now, probably to sell him information about your operation. Matteo's expression went dangerously still. Can you get me the location? I pulled up the calendar details. Hotel Galante. Same place as the Port Authority event. Private room 7. Perfect. He pulled out his phone, dialed. Luca. I need a team at Hotel Galante by 3:30. Private room 7. Calabresi has a meeting with Marchesi at 4. I want you there first. Full surveillance setup. Record everything. Pause. No, don't intercept. Let them start the meeting. I want evidence of him attempting to sell proprietary information. Then we move. He ended the call and looked at me. So when we show up at his office, I said, he'll think he still has leverage. He'll think he can negotiate. He'll think the Marchesi meeting is his ace in the hole. Exactly. Matteo's mouth curved with something cold and satisfied. And when you point out that every single one of those meetings is about to evaporate, including the one he thinks we don't know about, he'll know he's finished. You want me to be the one who tells him. I want him to see that you're not afraid, that you're not a victim, that you're the reason his entire operation is collapsing. His eyes locked on mine. Can you do that? I thought about my brother, about Vera, about 3 years of being invisible while men like Calabresi treated people like commodities. Yes, I said. I can do that. Calabresi's office, 10:52 a.m. The building was smaller than I expected, more modest, the kind of place that looked legitimate but felt wrong. Luca stayed in the car. Matteo and I walked in alone. The receptionist tried to stop us. Matteo didn't slow down. He'll want to see us, was all he said. We found Calabresi in his office, on the phone, looking relaxed, confident. That changed when he saw us. He ended the call, stood slowly. Matteo, Signorina De Luca, this is unexpected. Is it? Matteo said. We thought you'd be expecting us, given the morning you've had. I don't know what you mean, I stepped forward. Set the tablet on his desk. Your 10:30 meeting with Andretti Shipping, I said. Cancelled 17 minutes ago. Your 11:15 with Northern Imports, also cancelled. Your 2 o'clock with the customs liaison, that one's not cancelled yet, but it will be. Probably in the next 10 minutes. Calabresi's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on the desk. Business fluctuates, he said. Business doesn't fluctuate when federal investigators are examining your transactions, I continued. Or when your contractor gives a full deposition about falsified access codes and attempted corporate espionage, or when attempted abduction charges are filed against 3 of your employees. You can't prove, we can prove all of it. Matteo pulled out a folder, set it beside the tablet. Payment records, communication logs, email metadata, security footage from this morning's incident. All of it documented, all of it admissible. I picked up the tablet again, pulled up Calabresi's personal calendar. Oh, and your 4 o'clock meeting with Marchesi, I said. The one you were planning to use to sell information about Matteo's Port Authority bid? That's cancelled too. Because we'll be there instead, with evidence of your attempted corporate espionage, which Marchesi will be very interested to see, right before he withdraws his bid and leaves you with nothing. Calabresi's face went white. How did you? I see patterns, I said simply. It's what I do. Hidden calendar entries, confidential consultations with competitors, meetings scheduled off the books. I met his eyes. You thought I was invisible. You thought I was just Matteo's assistant. You were wrong. What do you want? Calabresi's voice was still controlled, but I could hear the crack underneath. I want you to understand something, Matteo said quietly. You thought Isolde was a weakness, a way to get to me, but you were wrong. He moved to stand beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. She's not my weakness, Matteo continued. She's the reason you failed. She found your spoofed emails. She identified your timeline. She connected Dario to your operation. She spotted your hidden meeting with Marchesi. And she's the one who just explained to you exactly why your business is over. Calabresi looked at me. Really looked. I didn't flinch. Here's what happens next, Matteo said. You cease all surveillance of Isolde and her family. You withdraw from Milan entirely. You dissolve your operations in Italy, and you never come back. Do that, and the evidence stays sealed. The federal investigation closes. The attempted abduction charges disappear. And if I don't, then I release everything. Every partner you've ever had sees the evidence. Every transaction you've made gets scrutinized. Every legitimate business you front for cuts ties. You don't just lose Italy, you lose everything. Silence. Then Calabresi laughed. It sounded bitter. You're offering me exile. I'm offering you survival. Take it. Calabresi looked at the folder, at the tablet, at me. She's good, he said finally. Better than I thought. I know, Matteo said. That's why she's not going anywhere. We left him sitting at his desk, staring at evidence of his own failure. Luca pulled away from the curb. It's done, Matteo said quietly. I waited for relief, for the weight to lift. Instead, I felt empty. What happens now? I asked. Matteo looked at me. Now we go back to the house, and we talk about what you want. Matteo's house, 1:30 p.m. We sat in his living room. Coffee. Again. The silence felt different this time. The 2 weeks are almost over, Matteo said finally. Well, technically we still have 10 days. But the threat's resolved. The surveillance is done. Calabresi is leaving the country. You're safe. So I can leave. Yes. He set down his cup. I promised you a choice. No coercion, no manipulation. So here it is. He pulled out a document, set it on the table between us. This is an offer. Chief of Staff. Real title, real authority, real compensation. You'd have autonomy over operations, final say on calendar and security protocols, and written protection for your family that doesn't end if you leave. You'd be a partner, not an employee. I stared at the document. There's also a severance package, he continued. If you choose to leave, 6 months' salary, housing assistance, references that will get you any position you want, and continued security monitoring for you and your family for 1 year. No strings, no obligations. Why? Because I promised you freedom, and I keep my promises. I picked up the document, read through it. Every word was exactly what he'd said. Fair, generous, no hidden clauses. And if I stay, I asked, what happens to last night? That's a separate question. His voice was careful. The job offer stands regardless. Whether there's anything between us personally is your choice. Entirely your choice. You're separating them. I'm giving you the option to separate them. You can take the job and maintain professional boundaries. You can take the severance and never see me again. Or, he stopped. Or you can choose something else. What do you want? I want you to stay. I want the job and the relationship and everything that comes with it. I want to stop pretending I don't count the hours until you walk into my office. I want to come home to you in this house instead of an empty guest room. He met my eyes. But I want you to choose it because you want it, not because you need safety, not because you feel obligated, because you want me. My throat tightened. I spent 3 years being invisible, I said. Being useful. Being the person who solved problems quietly so no one had to notice I existed. I noticed. I know, but I didn't let myself see it. Because seeing it meant risking everything I'd built. I set down the document. And then I resigned, and you wouldn't let me go. And I was so angry because I thought you were trapping me. I was, he said quietly, at first. But then you gave me choices, real choices. You let me negotiate. You listened when I set boundaries. You brought me here and showed me who you are when you're not being Matteo Rizzo, the man who destroys people. I stood, moved closer. You made me feel seen, actually seen, not just useful, not just competent, seen. He stood too. We were inches apart. I don't want to be invisible anymore, I said. I don't want to be the person who fixes everything quietly and disappears. I want to be a partner. I want authority and autonomy and respect. I want my name on decisions and my voice in strategy. You'll have all of that. And I want you. The words came out steady. Sure. Not because I need protection. Not because I'm grateful. Because when you confessed at 2 a.m, I realized I'd been lying to myself for 3 years. I'd been pretending I didn't notice you either. Pretending it was just professional. Pretending I didn't feel something every time you said my name. His hand found my face. Say it again. I want you. I want the man who counts the hours until I arrive. I want the person who notices I don't take sugar in my coffee. I want the ruthless strategist who becomes gentle when he touches me. I covered his hand with mine. I want you, all of you, not the protection you offer or the empire you've built. Just you. I'm choosing you, Matteo. Not because I'm trapped, because I want to. He kissed me. Different from last night, slower, like we had. Time now, like the crisis was over and we could breathe. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you, he said quietly. I've loved you since the day you stopped me from walking into that auditor meeting. Since the first time you looked at me like I was being an idiot and you were too professional to say it out loud. I laughed. It came out shaky. I love you too, even though you're controlling and manipulative and you held me hostage with a contract clause. I prefer strategically protective. You held me hostage. Yes, and I'd do it again. He pulled back enough to look at me. But I'll also give you everything you asked for. Partnership, autonomy, respect. Your family stays protected. Your choices stay yours. And if you ever want to leave, I won't. But if you do, the door's open. Always. I picked up the chief of staff contract, found a pen on his desk, signed it. Partners, I said. Partners, he agreed. Then he kissed me again, and I let myself fall into it. Let myself believe that this, the job, the man, the choice, was real. That I'd walked out of invisibility and into something better, something I'd chosen. 2 months later, the office looked different with my name on the door. Isolde De Luca, chief of staff. I still wasn't used to it. My brother called twice a week, completely unaware of how close he'd come to danger. He'd been offered a research position at Cambridge for his post-grad work, full funding, housing included. The recommendation letter had come from one of Matteo's Cambridge contacts, though my brother would never know that. Some protection continued quietly, even after the threat ended. I'd stopped arguing about it. Vera had laughed for 10 minutes straight when I'd told her I was staying. Then she'd demanded details about Matteo that I refused to provide. Some things stayed private. I walked into Matteo's office without knocking. Partnership privileges. He looked up from his desk, and his expression shifted, softened. Calendar crisis, he asked. Prevented one. The Marchesi meeting was about to overlap with the Port Authority review. I moved Marchesi to Thursday. See? This is why I kept you. You kept me because I'm brilliant, and you're not stupid enough to let that go. True, he stood. Came around the desk. Also because I'm in love with you, and you haven't gotten tired of me yet. Yet being the operative word? He pulled me close, kissed me in the middle of his office in the middle of the afternoon like he had every right. Because he did. Because I'd given it to him. Dinner tonight, he asked. Can't. I have a meeting with the new security protocols team. Your idea, remember? Reschedule. No, you're the one who wanted me to have authority. I'm using it. His smile was slow, proud. Partner, not possession. Exactly. Tomorrow then. My place. Our place, I corrected. Because I'd moved in 3 weeks ago. Because the guest room had become my office. Because coming home to him felt less like a choice I'd made once, and more like the life I was building. One decision at a time, one boundary at a time, one partnership at a time. I kissed him once more, then headed for my office. I had work to do, and for the first time in 3 years, I was doing it as myself. Fully seen, fully valued, fully choosing the life I wanted. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening, for staying, for letting my stories keep you company. I hope this festive season brings you warmth, rest, and at least one moment that feels like a deep breath. I'm genuinely grateful you're here. Your time means a lot to me. Until the next story, take care of yourself.